Chilterns, the Quantocks, and the Mendips. I think there's another line as well. They all sort of seem to meet in the area that meets up around Avebury, which is the sort of well, they don't all get that far, but they all point to that area. There you have basically the middle of this whole phenomenon is sort of based around Avebury. I mean, in John King's message that he was given, it was Barbary Castle Hillfort, which is just north of Avebury. But he said that these things, he wasn't quite sure what he was talking about when he came through it out with this prophecy, but it became apparent that this is the area in which the crop circles were concentrated, and that the whole thing was to be a prelude to a decloaking of the vehicles in which the beings that are making these are travelling. I mean, whether those when it comes down to actually talking about whether these beings, according to John King's information, are ETs or not,
right?
This is where it gets a bit weird, because it's like they're more like extra-dimensional than extraterrestrial, because it seems like when you get on to this dimension where they live, or density level, the relationship between place and it alters, because somehow what we would see as an impossible travelling on this dimension is completely different on that dimension. It's sort of, they exist in the same place in the same time. Time and space is all completely different on that level, according to what he brought through. Anyway,
I was just going to mention, as we were cut off, that basically what you were saying is that this is an entity that is living allegedly beyond any kind of according to the properties that we know in this universe, and hence travel or time or anything like that those types of properties actually are kind of dissolved. That's the message that I get from this. Maybe you wanted to expand more on that.
Yeah, this is where the messages that come in through particularly from people who've had near-death experiences, which I now know of 6 people who've specifically come back from these NDEs talking about 2012. A sort of a subtext that runs through the prophecies and through the NDE pronouncements about what is going on here is that in 2012 there will be a breach of our perceptual boundaries. If you look at the prophecies of the Maoris, for example, that's a very good example, because they have this creation myth that says in the beginning of time, at creation, we had a sky god and an earth god, one on top of the other in an embrace. As a result of the embrace, they had 3 children, 3 gods, who pushed them apart, so that's why the sky is up there and the earth is down here. And then it goes on. The second part of the prophecy is that one day, when the children of the war god, that is mankind, when we are too distracted to remember the old myths anymore, then the sky god and the earth god will come crashing back together, and they call it Kahinga Tiarai. And that actually translates as the curtain will fall. So, I mean, on a basic level, that sounds like bad news, and that it's game over situation. But one of the young Maoris actually spoke to the elders, and it transpired that 2 of these words have mutated over the years from their original meanings, and that is the word for curtain and the word for fall, which had originally been veil and dissolve. So that word veil is the same word they've got for the veil between life and death. So in 2012, this is when they've pinpointed this change, the veil between life and death will dissolve. And that fits on exactly with what the Peruvians say in their Pachacudi prophecy. They say that in Tarepe Pacha, which they put as the 1st of August 2012, this is the golden age of meeting ourselves again. They say at this point, in a shamanic cosmos, you have an overworld and an underworld, and the everyday world in between them, connected up by the world tree, up and down which the shamans travel, which corresponds to the Earth's polar axis.
Yes.
They say that the underworld and the overworld in 2012 will converge on the everyday world. So you have again this idea that these other realms will become accessible to us. And when you think about it, that brings in prophecies of the the reappearing of Shambhala, which is also, there's a whole group of people who think that Kalki is alive on the earth today. Kalki is the Hindu name for Rudrakakrin, who's the Tibetan Lama in charge of Shambhala, the last of a series of lamas who each live 100 years and that are in charge of the city. And the last one will bring in the golden age. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so he, according to the theory, 1926 is when he took over. So we're getting quite close to the point where his time is up, and this golden age has to occur. And that at that time, the hidden city of Shambhala will become visible. So again, you have this invisible realm becoming accessible to us.
Do you think that this has anything to do with, not maybe that the dead will rise again, because that seems too much kind of a zombie flick to me, but the idea of communicating perhaps then with spirits, a soul, a person that has left the earthly realms. Do you think that is a possibility, that will open up then?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because just this week I saw some photographs on the net of some flooding that's occurred, and all these coffins have come floating out onto the surface in a graveyard. So it's like this graveyard's littered with coffins. It just sort of reminded me of that whole concept. And there's one of the tarot cards where you can see these coffins have broken open and these people are coming out of it.
Yes.
But that whole idea is basically pinched from the Egyptians. I mean, many of the Christian concepts really come from Egyptian concepts, and the whole concept of judgment and this idea. I mean, this is why the Egyptians mummified themselves and put all their stuff in the grave. They thought, they had a false door as well for the astral body, the bar and the car to come in and out. But this whole idea of coming out of our coffins really has come from them, I think. But yeah, I do think it seems to be saying that we are going to have some sort of communication possibilities. I mean, it's again bringing in a certain amount of speculation. But I mean, you've got in the Christian tradition, you've got this idea that at the what they call the Judgment Day,
yes,
the heavenly Jerusalem will descend. So that's like an invisible city becoming visible. And in the Peruvian Paititi prophecy, again, you have, when the Golden Age starts, you have the appearance of the invisible kingdom of Paititi becomes visible. So it does seem like that there's going to be some sort of connect up. And in fact, there is a direct connection here with one of the Maya prophecies from the Chilam Balams, where it says, this is the Jaguar priest prophecies. They were actually written down after the Spanish had arrived, where they actually made a bonfire of all the material they could find, and then Delander he was told off by the King of Spain and had to go back and encourage them to write down some of their knowledge. So one of the results was these Chilam Balam prophecies, the Jaguar priest prophecies.
Right.
There's some talking in the Chilam Balams of the 9 gods, and how they are. It talks of how they're due to return, and it talks about the return of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. But it also says the god will come to visit his little ones, and after death will be the subject of his discourse. That's pretty well exact quote of the translation from my memory. So to me, that seems to tie in with, because all these people are coming back from near-death experiences talking about it, it seems one possibility is that everybody will have something that equates to a near-death experience.
Well,
because, well, it's been found now. Have you heard about Rick Strassman's work?
That's the spirit molecule, right? DMT?
That's right, yes. He looked into the pineal gland and found that at birth and at death and during mystical experiences, our pineal gland secretes a hallucinogen, dimethyltryptamine, into the bloodstream. but it transpires that there are probably at least 5 hallucinogenic molecules produced by the pineal gland under certain circumstances. But dimethyltryptamine is the one that covers all these altered states of consciousness I mentioned, where people are coming back talking about 2012. What ties them all together is DMT, because they're all mystical experiences. Therefore, everybody who's had them had this DMT in their bloodstream. And also, it's now known that the Maya themselves had they used a hallucinogenic toad, or the venom from a toad that contains 5-MeO DMT, very, very similar. And they used the same mushroom that McKenna, and their ceiba tree actually contains harmine, in its bark. That's the other main constituent of the ayahuasca brew.
So could it be what you're saying here a little bit? What I'm hearing is that potentially, if everyone is having a near-death experience or close to it, or even dies, I mean, could this have something to do then that we could actually enter into a phase that is very apocalyptic in nature, meaning that all souls on the planet, so to speak, are actually in one way or another are going to come into contact with the realm of the dead, so to speak?
Well, I mean, if you look at Boris Moraviev's, his work, this is one of Gurdjieff's contemporaries, he implied that all souls will be incarnation at this point. We've got to the point where everybody who's born will come back again and actually be, for that moment, incarnate. And that's why we're so many on the planet right now, right? Well, it seems to fit with that, yes.
Yeah.
It seems... Now, what was I going to say? The near-death experiences. Yeah, I know what it was. Yeah, in our sinus bones and in our pineal gland we have magnetite, and it's a fact that some people are electromagnetically hypersensitive, such that if there's little fluctuations in the Earth's geomagnetic field, that will cause them to have visions. People with temporal lobe epilepsy and schizophrenia are examples. And when there's a solar storm, and remember that NASA has now confirmed that 2012 is going to be a pretty significant solar storm, equivalent to one we haven't had for some considerable time.
It is.
That will then cause that will cause a geomagnetic storm on the Earth, and that will affect people who are electromagnetically hypersensitive by causing them to have visions. I mean, and that is in the Bible about these times as well, isn't it? About your old men will dream dreams and see visions. Can't remember the exact quote.
Right.
But I don't like to quote the Bible too much. But
so what you're saying here, Geoff, is that we can basically you're obviously you're laying out very many different types of points, so to speak, both scientific and both NDEs, near-death experiences, and that all of these things together seem to point again towards the same time frame, same event, if you will. And again, I want to tie this back with the idea and talk a little bit more actually about the sunspot cycle. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think personally that's a key point to all of this, a key element to what is going to happen potentially in 2011, 2012, something like that, leading up to that end date. And what you've been adding here only further strengthens my belief that that's going to be very significant. And we could have obviously technology disrupted, we know that, but what you're saying here as well is that we could have an increase in people's sensitivity. CMEs, coronal mass ejections from the sun, will potentially come, flood us with more energy, so to speak, cosmic energy. And also we can add on top of that, if this plasma you were talking about earlier, that is outside right now, at least the heliosphere of the sun, if this also penetrates within our solar system, we could also be flooded with this energy, with this plasma, right? Because the sun is bursting this towards our planet, So that's a possible scenario here.
Yeah, Dmitriev said that he thinks that this flooding of plasma will cause the mass spontaneous evolution of humanity.